Hey everyone, welcome back. As promised, I said no more videos with a green background. Well, not the green paint anyway. We've got lovely green garden here. I have moved to the new house, which is in Dumaguete, which is on Negros Oriental, which is the island next to where I was before on Cebu. So I'm out in my garden here. There's a little bit of traffic noise from the road. Some of the bikes here, they have crazy exhausts on them, even though they're only like 125cc scooters. But we'll work around it anyway. So today I'm going to bring you a review of the Olympus 25mm 1.2 Pro. If you are looking for the review of the 45mm 1.2 Pro, that was my previous video. So we're looking now at the 25mm 1.2 Pro. It's a standard 50mm equivalent on full frame lens with a large 1.2 aperture. We'll quickly talk about the build quality and the handling, but mainly let's go over that 1.2 aperture and see what you get. So the Olympus 25mm 1.2 Pro, it's one of the new Pro range of lenses from Olympus. It's pretty expensive, around about sort of $1,000, $1,200, something like that. You can pick it up for about £800 in the UK. So again, you're looking at that pretty expensive price bracket, but let's have a look what it actually gets you. So the 25mm, as I say, is a pretty standard focal length. It's really useful for a lot of subjects. You can get enough bokeh and a shallow depth of field to isolate portrait subjects, but it's also nice if you're just doing sort of travel and street photography. You can use this even for landscapes, sort of focusing in on the landscape a little bit more. So in terms of build quality, again, it's this pro level build quality. So you've got metal barrel, you've got fully weather sealed lens, and it's really well weather sealed. You have the focus clutch mechanism, so you pull it back to turn into manual and forward to go into autofocus. Again, make sure if you're using this and you want to use it in autofocus mode that the clutch is pushed forwards on the lens. Again, we have manual focus on this. If we pull the clutch down, we have the manual focus, and it has a distance scale on it ranging from 0.3 up to infinity. The handling and the build quality is really good. It feels really solid, pairs really well with my EM1 Mark II. So build quality wise, you're going to be really happy with this lens. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take you through a few images that I've shot. I've had this lens for about 4 months now. I've used it, well, when I first got it, it didn't come off my camera. That's how much I liked using this lens. Okay, so I've come back inside now, and just a quick point to note, Olympus do supply these Pro lenses with a little lens hood, just slides on, clicks on. It's a very simple design, shouldn't break, seems okay. And they also supply it with a lens pouch, little case, which is nicely padded inside, a little bit of leather or fake leather at the bottom. They seem to keep the lenses in pretty good condition. I tend to baby my gear anyway to make sure it's in good condition to resell. But that's nice of Olympus. So £1,099 in the UK. So again, it's a pretty expensive lens, and the 1.2 aperture on full frame is going to be equivalent to about 2.4 in terms of depth of field. So this lens does allow you to get that shallow depth of field look. Let's have a look now at the image quality, because that's really what you're paying for. You're paying for this 1.2 and 1.4 aperture. And at 1.2, it's pretty sharp. Again, you can define eyelashes, eyebrows, things like this. It's probably not as sharp as the 45mm 1.2 wide open. This lens is not quite as good as that optically, but it's still very good. It's sharp enough for everything you want. When I took this lens to Bokeh, and I'm going to show you some photos of that now, I pretty much left it on the EM1 Mark II all the time because I was so happy with the images that I was getting from it. So at 1.2 it's sharp. You get this feathered bokeh or bokeh. I'm not, again, I said it before, I can't tell the difference, but what I can tell is that it's nice, creamy, smooth rendering. It's not distracting, it's not nervous. So again, you get very nice bokeh from this lens. At 1.2, it allowed me, even in very low light at dusk, to keep my ISO level below 1600, which is really my cutoff for micro four thirds cameras at the moment in terms of image quality that I'm happy with. So this lens is very useful. It does allow you to shoot in low light. And still keep the shutter speed sort of at 1/60th as a minimum to try and capture portraits. Obviously, it'd be nicer to be able to get to 1/125th or something like that, but you know, you can't always get there. It stopped down to 1.4, don't notice any difference. Stopped down to 1.8, it becomes a little bit sharper. It's still not as sharp as the 25mm 1.8 from Olympus at 1.8, which is surprising considering the price. But a lens like this for me becomes worth it and worth the price because it's a standard lens. I can use this, I can shoot some landscapes, I can shoot some flowers, I can shoot portraits, travel images. The focusing is super fast. As always on Olympus, I almost feel that I don't need to mention it anymore. The focusing on Olympus cameras and with these pro lenses is lightning fast. So no worries there. The manual focus is nice to use. It's a very smooth focus ring, so you get a good feel for the focus. So without me talking anymore, let's just have a look at some of the images that I've taken on this lens with the EM1 Mark II. I traveled around Boracay a little bit in the Philippines with my wife and daughter. I loved the portraits I was getting, even sort of at 1600 ISO. With this lens, it enabled me to capture shots that I couldn't get with the 1.8 equivalents, because I would have been at 3200 ISO with a 1.8 lens, and at 3200 ISO I'm not quite happy with the image quality on Micro Four Thirds. So overall the lens is sharp wide open but not super sharp. The 45 1.2 is slightly sharper. The 25 1.8 is actually a little bit sharper at 1.8 than this and continues to be sharper as you stop it down. However, you're paying for 1.2 and 1.4 aperture. Do I think it's worth it? Well, if you looked at my 45mm 1.2 Olympus lens review, you'd have seen that I decided to sell that lens. I haven't sold it yet, it's still sat over there, but I am planning to sell it. Will I sell the 25 1.2? No. I'm going to keep this, and the reason being is that the focal length is more useful. The 45 1.2 is a specialized portrait lens, really. Yeah, you can use it for landscapes in certain scenarios. You can, get closer, you can focus on an intimate landscape, as they call it. But the 25mm being a 50mm equivalent on full frame is an excellent all-around lens. If I only had this lens, I could still work and get the images I want 90% of the time. So for me, the price, although it's the same or slightly less than the 45 1.2, it's a more useful focal length. So I'll be keeping this lens. In terms of image quality, okay, so it's sharp. It's as sharp as you need. It performs very well optically. The bokeh is beautiful. The focusing is quick. In terms of issues, there aren't any really. There is very minor chromatic aberration. There's a little bit of green fringing, but that's taken care of in camera if you're shooting JPEG. If you're shooting RAW, it's very easy to remove in Lightroom. It's like a click of a button, boom, you're done. Distortion, there isn't any. Wouldn't really expect too much on a 50mm equivalent lens, so that's pretty good. Okay, so that's it, that's my review. So in terms of optical quality, I gave the 45mm 1.2 an 8 out of 10. That was probably a little bit harsh actually. I think that's closer to a 9 out of 10. So the 25mm, I'd give it like 7.5, 8 out of 10. It's very good optically. It's as good as you need. Value for money wise, that's the issue here. Are you willing to pay an extra £700, like, 200% more for a 1.2 and a 1.4 aperture, because that's what you're paying for. The size is manageable on an Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II. If I was using it on something like a Pen F, it might start to feel a little bit front heavy, but on the EM1 Mark II or an EM5 Mark II gripped, it feels very, very nice. It's about the same sort of size as the 12 to 40 f2.8 Pro, and it's the same as the other new Prime Pro lenses from Olympus. You are getting excellent build quality with that weight. It feels like a tool rather than a toy. The 25mm 1.8 I had and I've used. In fact, I had it only a few months ago and I was using it in the UK. And it's a very small lens. It's like this sort of size and not as big a diameter. And it's very, very light. It feels a little bit like a toy on an EM1 Mark II, but optically it's very, very good. You have to make that call as to whether you want to spend the extra money on the 1.2 lens versus the 1.8 lens. If you're just using it for your own personal hobby, just for fun, just for shooting the family, the kids, then the f1.8 lens from Olympus is every bit as good as this if you don't require the 1.2 aperture, which allows a little bit more shallow depth of field and allows a little bit more light gathering in low light situations. If that's not essential to you, for instance, if you are mainly using lenses to take landscape shots, then with the image stabilization in the Olympus camera bodies, perhaps you can keep the ISO down anyway. If you've got moving subjects or portraits in low light, this is where this lens becomes very, very good. I'd give it, therefore, 7.5, 8 out of 10 for image quality. Value for money, I would put it up to sort of 7. It's expensive, but it's worth it because the focal length is that much more useful. You know, you can use it for that many more things, and so it becomes better value. Okay, so if you find this useful, I'm just trying to give, you know, sort of my opinion on the lens. Other people might disagree. If you disagree, great, put it in the comments. I love to discuss it with you. In terms of what's coming up, I'm going to be reviewing all the gear I've got at the moment. The newest thing is I just got a GoPro Hero 6 Black. I've also got a DJI Phantom 4 Advanced. And so I'm going to do a little bit of travel videography with that. The Sony A7III now has become my main camera, and that's what I'm filming this on. I'll do a review of that, even though there's millions out there. I'll just put my thoughts up quickly. Won't be too technical, won't be too detailed. And I need to get a few more lenses for that, so I'll start to review the Sony system soon alongside the Olympus. Okay guys, if you find it helpful, then I really appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. If you subscribe, that's great. You'll get notifications about new videos as and when they're coming. Like I say, I'm in a new place now. I've got good internet, yay! And I got, you know, office space. I got everything I need now to start cracking out the videos. Okay, till next time, thanks for watching. Keep shooting.